Good evening, and welcome to my House of Horror. This month we are gathered together to celebrate a trio of cinematic works of horror that contain the word house in the title. They have almost nothing in common with each other, nothing save the word house in the title, and that they are works of horror. But truly, what more do you need? We begin in the United States with the adaptation of a work by one of America's first horror greats, Edgar Allen Poe, and one of the most iconic directors when it comes to adapting Poe's works, Roger Corman. House of Usher. Arguably, the best films of Roger Corman's career were his adaptations of the works of Edgar Allan Poe that he made with AIP. They had some of the highest on-screen production values of the films that he personally directed, putting aside the films he produced, and some of the finest actors he ever worked with, especially this film's standout star, Vincent Price. The film hews, generally, fairly close to the plot of Poe's story. A man, unnamed in the story and named Philip in the film, and who's played by Mark Damon, comes to the house of an old friend, his childhood friend, Roger Usher, who was played by Vincent Price. As in the novel, and in the film, he's coming to see his fiancée and Roderick's sister, Madeline Usher, who was played by Myrna Fahy, whose last name I've probably mispronounced. He finds the house in disarray, with Roderick stricken by a condition that makes him hypersensitive to sensory input, and Madeline suffering with a weak constitution. Roderick has convinced himself that there is a curse upon the family, and it will be brought to an end soon, with the death of both him and his sister, while the protagonist attempts to persuade him otherwise, that they shouldn't, die like this. As the story ends, this isn't much of a spoiler, the film and the Poe short story end the same way. The Poe story is older than the first operating computer, so I can reasonably say that, yes, the ending involves both the Usher siblings dead and the house having collapsed into the swamp. Again, the original title of the story is The Fall of the House of Usher. And the work by Poe clearly spells out where we're going, as a degree of foreshadowing there, while the film excises that portion of the title to maintain a certain degree of suspense. Now, what makes the story work so well, as is the case with many of Poe's stories, is a profound and powerful sense of psychological tone and atmosphere. The titular house of the story has a profound and intense, I ain't using that word, but it's the right word to use here, decay and oppression, with the ground around the house being just as corrupted and decayed, having once been fertile and beautiful, but now having become swamp, full of bogs and mires. Consequently, as a film, it depends strongly on its set and costume design, and the film delivers. The set designs strongly convey an intense sense of oppression that is weighing down on the psyches of Roderick and Madeline, and in turn, the performances show a really, really strong and visible job of showing how frayed Roderick's mind has become, and how Madeline's mind is becoming based on this environment. Where Corman's streamlined and lean filmmaking comes into the picture is with the incredibly small cast. As with much of Corman's Poe adaptations, there are a small number of characters in a rural and confined area. Indeed, there are a total of 4 characters in the film. The 2 Usher siblings, our protagonist, and their butler. No townsfolk, no extras, nothing like that. And it works here because there's less variables to cause issue with performances, so everybody can just lay out what they're doing and just do it. So, reduced filming time, which fits with Corman's quickie schedule, and also, in a way, it saves money on the budget, which can be then put into other things like the fantastic set designs. The film's script, written by Richard Matheson of I Am Legend fame, has really fleshed out the four very well, making their motivations incredibly clear and giving them their own eccentricities, which don't necessarily play out the same way, or at all, in Poe's original work. I really enjoyed this film, and it really deserves a better DVD release than what it's gotten. The film was released as part of MGM's Midnight Movie Collection on DVD as a double feature, but it is yet to receive a Blu-ray release in the United States. In the UK, on the other hand, you are much more lucky, as Arrow Digital has given it their usual Criterion Collection level treatment on its own, with a brand new master and audio commentaries and featurettes and all the other wonderful stuff, but that's in a region that is not compatible with the United States unless you have a multi Blu-ray player, which I don't know if they're a thing that exists. Still, hopefully this release will come to the US as well, because Arrow Digital puts a lot of really good work in their releases, especially for horror films, like above and beyond what we got in the peak of Shout Factory's Scream Factory. So I really would really like to see this release get a US release and bring all this to the United States where I can see it and enjoy it, and where others like you can pick it up as well. And should any from Arrow Digital be watching this video, please give this movie the US release it so richly deserves. Normally, I'd say either my pleas have no hope necessarily, but I did a video on Record of Lodoss War when it was unlicensed and put in a plea for a new US Blu-ray release. Got it. I put out a video for Armored Trooper Votom singing its praises and hoping that it would get license rescued someday. Got it. Let's go for the hat trick. In the meantime, though, speaking of the UK, next time we travel across the pond, United Kingdom, and to one of their more established horror film studios of the 1970s. Not Hammer. Not the House of Hammer. Because we're doing a film genre that has managed to endure in horror, or a film medium, film style that's managed to endure in horror in a way that has never quite managed to endure in other genres like science fiction, or fantasy, or romance, or action. We're doing an anthology film. And if you know UK horror cinema and anthology films, we're talking Amicus. And in this case, we're talking Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. See you next time. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. And also consider backing my Patreon. Patreon backers get episodes up to 1 week early of this show and any future Let's Plays. Also, please consider backing my Ko-fi. Tossing me a few bucks also helps support the show, and it's not a monthly obligation or anything like that.